Hi, my name is Christopher Smith. I'm a part of the ACB YouTube channel and a member of the ACB YouTube committee. September 10th to September 16th is Living Donation Week. It's the time of the year where we celebrate those who have made the ultimate sacrifice and have given a part of themselves to help save someone else. Living Donation Week is an annual awareness week featuring free events and activities focused on raising awareness, improving access and equity in living organ donation, profiling the work of Team Transplant, and celebrating our incredible living donors and their transplant recipients. It was first launched by the Center of Living Organ Donation in 2020 and is held annually starting the Sunday after Labor Day. Join us today while we share stories and experiences from those who have gone through transplant.
Hi, my name's Ash. I'm a second-year PhD student in history at the University of Toronto. My research looks at Black Canadian support of Southern African liberation movements. In the summer of 2019, I found out my dad was in kidney failure. Unsure of what that meant, I looked into what the disease is, and what I found out was shocking. I received a call from my sister, who informed me that my dad's kidney function was at 10%, which essentially means that both his kidneys were functioning at the proper level. I was devastated by the news, trying to figure out exactly what that meant, but understanding that anything that's functioning at 10% wasn't a good thing. My dad fought against apartheid, but as a strong individual. We identify as colored South Africans, and in Canada we identify as Black. So understanding what Black elderly men are in our community, my dad didn't want to share that he was experiencing his weakness. That's my own perception for it. However, it was difficult for my dad to have a kind of conversation about what actually was going on with his health. On July 8th, 2021, I donated my kidney to my dad. The surgery was nothing serious, I thought. Well, I walked in, they shaved my stomach, I was sedated, and I was out the next day. My dad, I walked over to him before I was discharged, and he was doing great. This Living Donation Week, I encourage you to find out more information about becoming a donor, because the impact you'll have on a recipient will change their life. I also encourage you to have honest conversations with people in our community. We all know somebody who has diabetes. We all know somebody who's either on dialysis, thinking about dialysis, have heard a conversation about dialysis. I encourage you to make those conversations part of a larger conversation about our healthcare. We need to be more open, because if we're more open about what we need, then we can start to demanding better healthcare for ourselves.
My name is Jennifer Alexander, and I'm a liver transplant survivor. In February of 2016, while on vacation in the Caribbean, I realized something was wrong when I began having itchy skin, diarrhea, and swelling of the feet. Concerned for my health, I returned home immediately and saw my family doctor. He then referred me to the hospital to have the necessary tests done, then to a liver specialist, where I was diagnosed as having non-alcoholic cirrhosis of the liver that will require a liver transplant.
Hey everyone, my name's Tisa Alexander, and I'm a mother, a wife, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. But I'm also a living organ donor. So my journey with organ donation began back in 2016, and at that point, my parents had come to my siblings and I and basically told us that my mother was very ill and that her liver was failing.
I was scared and at times became very irate with the people around me. Unless I could find a living donor, it was critical that I go on the waiting list for a matching donor.
We knew that my mom was sick, but it was more so that she was managing this illness with medication and doctor visits.
I was retaining a lot of fluid in my abdomen and had to make hospital visits to have it drained. Initially, on a monthly basis, then it progressed to every 2 weeks, and soon it was every week. I had lost my appetite and was practically living in the bathroom, but looked like I was 9 months pregnant.
Her best chances of survival is to get a living organ donor. So I didn't really know much about it at that point, neither did my siblings. So I went and started to Google everything I could find, started to look up organ transplant, organ donation. Really didn't have a good sense of what it really entailed. The most I knew about organ donation, is when you fill out your driver's license and they ask you if you want to be an organ donor. So that was the extent of my knowledge at the time.
My husband's patience and reassurance that everything was going to be all right helped, along with regular visits from my children and grandchildren. My daughter was tested, and I was incredibly fortunate and overjoyed to learn that she was a match.
So in January of 2017, I donated about 70% of my liver to my mom, and the surgery went well. She has, again, part of my liver in her. She recovered pretty quickly and did really well.
The recovery process took a lot of hard work and time. I had lost a lot of muscle mass and had to endure physiotherapy to regain my mobility.
Myself, not so much. I had a bit of a complication with some internal bleeding after my donation, so I actually had to go back in for a second surgery to kind of stop that bleeding and patch up whatever was going on in there.
Today, I am retired and living in the islands with my husband, who is also retired. We spend our time enjoying the beaches and nature, as well as feeding the homeless on the island.
The folks at the University Health Network were very supportive along the whole way. They kept track of everything and were very good at communicating. So that was a really good experience, despite having a little bit of a snag along the way.
I still have good and bad days, but enjoy more good days than bad. I am so thankful for my daughter for taking the time to get tested and becoming a liver donor.
Within our community, within the African, Caribbean, and Black community, a lot of times physical health, mental health, things like these don't really get talked about. There's almost sort of a negative stigma towards these things in our community, and it becomes hard to talk about what's really going on. So hopefully my story and my journey can inspire at least one person or provide a little bit more education, and maybe it'll change your life. Thanks for listening today.
My dad is doing great. I mean, the man has 3 kidneys. He is the most engaged, the happiest I've ever seen him. He frequently is cutting the lawn on a regular basis. He's calling me to talk about, books I haven't read yet, to tell me about how they are. Like I said, having color back in his face is something that is amazing. Because at the end of the day, what really hurt and watched my dad go through while he was in kidney failure was his intellectual capacities were depleting. And that did not sit well with him. It took a lot out of him. He would struggle to find words. He would struggle to remember words, and he would talk about it. Again, this is somebody who fought against apartheid, so, shedding any kind of emotion is not something that we're used to. But that changed. it changed instantly. My dad could remember, my dad could articulate something, my dad could argue with me about a book that we were discussing, politics, sports. It gave him a new lease on life.
We know that getting started in the conversation around transplant can be very difficult. The average person isn't talking about transplant at the dinner table, and it seldom comes up in day-to-day conversation. However, these are the conversations that we need to have to protect and advocate for ourselves. Representation is one thing, but not everything. Here is a snippet from a Green Table Talk episode that will be debuting later on this week, featuring Lydia Joy Marshall and other members of the ACB community.
In addition to representation, we need accountability, that the types of things we've spoken about today, when we see things that are harming our people or are not including our narratives, that there's a way for those things to actually be changed.
And so you see this happen in clinical practice when people label individuals.
Being told by a doctor, I asked, like, why was so much being done?
The other is creating processes that make it a bit more fair for other groups who tend to be a bit more disadvantaged.
Welcome to the Green Table Talk, where we will have open and honest discussion about transplant. I'm your host, Janine Johnson.
Mom, she signed her card. I told her, well, it saved my life, and maybe you can save a life by signing yours.
Ladies, let me ask you this question. So do you think we have fair representation amongst the group of people that's actually selecting who gets to go through? Welcome to the Green Table Talk. I am your host, Janine Johnson. Thank you for joining us today. Today we have a topic that was initially brought to my attention from a presentation that I saw by my friend Lydia Joy. Today we're talking about transplant and the ACB community. How can we improve the process? Now, that's just a general title. This topic is going to span into different directions, different areas. So I'm really excited to start this, but that is just, like I said, just the general topic. Before we start, let's have you guys introduce yourself.
Good evening. So my name is Lydia Joy Marshall, and I sit primarily in research in health equity, so especially focused on transplant. I've actually worked within organ and tissue transplant for maybe 12 years now. I do a lot of community advocacy, both in this area and otherwise. So I sit on the board of the Black Health Alliance, where we truly kind of look at different areas in which our communities seem to be lagging or there's barriers to care. And so, this is an area that I've really been looking at and watching for a long time and trying to improve our access. So I'm happy to join the table tonight.
Excellent. I'm glad you're here. And next, Tamara.
Hi, my name is Tamara, and I'm a double transplant recipient. I received a kidney and a pancreas in 2018. My kidney disease started from having diabetes since I was 16 years old. And that brought about a lot of different obstacles, causing this kidney disease, dialysis, and the transplant. So I'm just here to highlight and to contribute to this topic as much as I can, and just to enlighten.
Beautiful. And I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you.
How about you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, my name is Paulina Blia. I'm a nurse practitioner from Toronto General Hospital. I work in the inpatient nephrology unit. And my role basically, primarily, I look after patients on dialysis. But I do see patients in the context of pre-transplant when they're on dialysis and thinking about getting a transplant. And then I also see them post-transplant, or rather when a transplant fails in that context. And then I will see them when they go back on dialysis as well. In addition to that, I'm also doing my PhD at Queen's University in nursing, and I'm focusing on diabetes, which is a primary issue when it comes to kidney failure, as you know, in the context of patients' experience with diabetes in West Africa.
So you see literally the gambit when it comes to, kidney disease and pre and post, like you see the gambit of everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so as I said previously, this episode was inspired to me by Lydia Joy. She did a presentation a couple weeks ago, and I thought that this is something we should dive into a little bit further on the Green Table Talk. I think everybody here is going to have, a lot to say because it's a deep conversation. It's a deep topic. So what I'm going to do is ask Lydia Joy to start us off with her presentation, and then from there we'll just start the conversation.
Sounds good. It's interesting today. I do not feel like the expert. I feel like there's such a wealth of information here. But just as you said, since you did reference my presentation before, I just wanted to give some basic, background that maybe can start our conversation off. So, a lot of what I do is really looking at, transplantation is something that's universal in Canada, and we talk about a social healthcare system, but there really are underlying currents of who receives it and what does it look like.
Oh, happy day, oh, happy day, oh, happy day, when Jesus washed, when Jesus washed, when Jesus washed, he washed my sins away. Oh, happy day, oh, happy day. Hi, my name is Fadia Jerome Smith, and I am a kidney transplant recipient, and here's my story. When I think back on my entire journey, I have to start from the moment when I thought everything was okay, everything was fine, and I was just doing Fadia. I was just doing me. So I bring you back to my university years when I was in Teachers College and I was an RA at the time.
So, like I always do for the people I love, I sing for them. I couldn't find a corny song to, well, actually I did have a corny song, but this one is not so corny. It's just something a song that I really like from The Simpsons. And you can sing along. Okay, here it goes. I don't know all the words.
I was 25 years old. One night I was binge watching the first 48, and as I was watching the show, I just started feeling discomfort in my back. And the back pain just was very, very persistent. I decided to take a couple Advil and think that I'm just gonna ride out the pain. I thought to myself, maybe I pulled a muscle, maybe I just twisted my body in a funny way, and that's why I had this back pain. I pop the Advils, take a nap. I wake up from the nap and I felt worse to the point where my right arm starting to feel numb. So at that point, I'm thinking something is really wrong. I'm dying. There's a stroke. I need to call somebody. So I call one of my friends who lived at the floor below me, and we call 911, rush to the hospital near my campus. That's where I was told, hey, Fadia, you have really high blood pressure. Did you know you had high blood pressure? At 25, the first thought was there's no way I have high blood pressure because that's an old people disease, right? Older people have hypertension, not 25-year-olds that play sports and are fairly active. I stayed overnight and they did ultrasounds. They tell me then that I have really small kidneys. I didn't even know where my kidneys were, so I just looked at them and I said, okay, no one has ever told me that. As a child, the most that I had was asthma. So I did go to the hospital fairly often, but it were for my lungs, not for anything else, because I didn't show any other symptoms. All the way, I would say even throughout my high school years, I was battling this asthma.
Hi, my name is Julius Guerrier. I was born in Toronto. Was diagnosed with sickle cell S beta thalassemia at the age of 2. I come from a family of 5 children, and 4 out of 5 children had sickle cell disease. Essentially, what sickle cell disease is a red blood cell disorder. So basically, the red cell has an abnormal shape. Instead of having an oval shape, it has like a crescent shape. So what can happen is that people that have sickle cell can have organ failure. So wherever you have blood circulating, you can have a crisis, you can have a blockage. So that can potentially have risk of organ failure. What we'd like people to understand is that this is a conversation, especially in the Black community. We don't talk enough about health and wellness. So for individuals that have a health issue, it seems to be something that happens quite often, that they shy away from talking about topics of health. In the Black community, like we have a history of stigmatizing people that are either have health issues or don't want to talk about it, keep it a secret in the family. So it's not in our advantage to do things like that. We should be able to have discussion and conversation about how we can improve each other's health. Especially like in the Black community, there's a lot of prevalence of diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. So people with diabetes can often have organ failure and require dialysis, and renal failure, kidney disease, etc. Even heart disease. So if you have a loved one that goes through those illnesses, and you might be a living organ donor, it's important to have this conversation and to see what kind of planning can be put in place, what kind of tests you need to be able to do, so that you can maybe save a life or give somebody the gift of a second chance at life. When I talk about some of the barriers, some of the barriers is accessing healthcare services. In the Black community, some of us don't even have a family doctor. So accessing healthcare services is something that's primordial that we need to do. Also, going to hospitals, sometimes we face issues with anti-Black racism. We face issues of people don't understanding us. People think that we suffer pain, or we can handle pain more than anybody else. We always feel like we're not being heard, or we've been dismissed when we go to hospital, or people talk to us as if we cannot understand or we cannot comprehend the issues that we're facing with our own health. So that could be very frustrating. That could be even for some people, it could prevent them from going forward and even seeking help.
Wow, what an amazing presentation. I want to take this time, if you made it this far, to thank you for watching. I also want to take this time to thank all the members of the ACB committee for all the hard work that you've done over the last 3 years. We're giving a voice, we're giving a meaning, and we're providing information to people that look just like us in need of this information. If you'd like to be a part of the committee or want to help and do more, feel free to contact us with the information listed below in the description. If you made it this far into the video, thank you for being a part of the ACB YouTube celebration presentation. We hope to see you next year. Take care. Bye.